We're live, everybody. Welcome in. It's Friday, May 26th. It's a little after 1 p.m. Central, 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern. Welcome in. We had a week off last week for a community forum while I was on vacation, but I'm back. And during that time, our awesome community held down the fort. They live streamed the shareholder meet while I was at the location, and Hans and the team here did such a phenomenal job carrying that whole thing. And it's just, again, thank you, Mimi, thank you, Richard, and thank you, Hans, and everybody else that was part of that awesome thing. It was just so cool going back, and I got to watch part of it while you guys were doing it. It was just so fun. It was so fun watching the whole thing. But yeah, I'm very excited to be back. Make sure you can hear me okay. Make sure you can see us okay. We have a lot to talk about on our community forum this Friday. Obviously, some pretty big news dropped yesterday with Ford and Tesla partnering on Tesla's charging network. And I really just want to start right away. We'll go with Mimi and then not legal advice / MMTLP. But first, we have to do our weekly MMTLP updates. So see, I didn't forget this time. I almost did. I was like a half second away. Then I read your name and I'm like, that's right. Go ahead.
You were brilliant. You are brilliant there. Yeah. So there was going to be a meeting with the House Financial Committee today about just MMTLP. It was canceled for 1 week because of the debt ceiling negotiations. So it shall be next week. And this involves naked shorting and shorting of shares that affects retail shareholders throughout the world. And now I've understood that it's prevalent in Europe too. So it's something that Mimi would face in Sweden. And it's most prevalent in companies that have a capital structure that is not well situated. So for example, like biotechs, small medical companies that are trying to create drugs, etc., and they have to go through 3 trials and it's difficult to raise money. Those are targeted in particular. And so notwithstanding just many issues of money, there's all kinds of medical advances that are impacted by naked shorting. And even if you don't care about MMTLP, that might affect you or a family member somewhere down the road. So you should be interested in that. And I know the Department of Justice came out and said they expect to do some prosecutions sometime later this year. So we shall see. But learn, everybody become aware and learn about this because it impacts everyone. So thanks.
Thank you. Where can people find more about MMTLP, Richard?
At not KNOT legal advice. Thank you. And I forgot to ask you a question. Why do cannibals not eat comedians? Because they taste funny.
Shut it down. Thank you guys, everybody. Well, see you next week. Why continue after? There you go.
And you wonder why people complain about your jokes, Richard?
No, I don't wonder.
Oh my God, that's amazing. I'm going to use that one of these days. All right, everybody, let's get started. Mimi, let us know what your thoughts are on the whole Ford thing. From yesterday, Ford and Tesla struck a supercharging partnership where Ford is going to be able to use every supercharger in the United States, and I think Canada as well. It sounds like a North America thing, but definitely in the United States, with a adapter starting, I believe, next year. And with all new Fords shipped starting in 2025, we'll have Tesla's plug, the NACS, the North America Charging Standard, as an actual feature in their cars, which is basically going with Tesla's format. So Mimi, give us your thoughts. How are you thinking?
I think that this is such an incredibly smart move. When Tesla in November introduced the North American charging standard, I thought that was pretty cocky. Kind of, we're setting the standard. And today I listened to everything again, and Jim Farley said, we've been talking about this for years. So I think this is just a step in a plan. They set the standard, they called it a standard, and now Ford is going to adapt it, which makes it more of a standard. And I think that in the long run, other brands will just follow. Because Tesla, they already have twice the amount of superchargers compared to any other, and they're working and they're good and they have good locations like Jim Farley talked about. So I think that the other brands, they will want to. And what I love about Farley is that he doesn't have the prestige, he's not afraid to come out and say that Tesla, they're doing this really well. We want to be a part of it. And
Richard,
I really like that
sorry.
attitude.
Yeah,
I'm done.
I couldn't agree more. Richard, what's going through your mind?
Yeah, so I'm going to blather about this a little bit. First of all, it's the income. So they're going to make income off of that. So that's all good. And I don't know if it's just going to be on the service itself, or eventually they're going to have to pay a fee. If I don't know if eventually Ford's going to have to pay Tesla a fee for the right to let its customers use the services and then charge the services directly to the customers down the road. I don't know, but either way, that's income to Tesla, and it's, in essence, it brings down the cost of that supercharging system, and it probably enables them to expand the system and probably pass those costs on to whoever wants to join in. So that's, and that as kind of a practical matter, great. On top of that, when Chinese companies want to come in, Chinese EVs want to come in the United States, I think they will want to use those systems also. And that, I think, provides Tesla some leverage back in China. So in effect, if they enable the Chinese EVs to operate in the United States through the Tesla system, the Chinese really can't do anything, or they can do less to inhibit Tesla in China. Seems like a reciprocal give and take. So I think that is potentially a dramatic thing. I think it suggests, and this is, I think, the start of multiple partnerships. There was a suggestion of a software something, and what it led me to believe was that eventually that Tesla is going to license FSD to Ford, and Ford will pay royalties and maybe a fee on top of that. And then maybe the FSD will become, just like they're doing with these standards, Tesla's standards will then become the national standard. And then and we've kind of talked about this, kind of like just throwing it out, but then they could license the FSD to everybody who wants to use it, take a huge chunk, way beyond just, so we're calculating what their value was based upon their own vehicles. Now let's expand that out way beyond that 20 million vehicles. Now we're talking about the entire market. I don't even know what those numbers are, but they have to be gargantuan. And we're kind of protected from all those other OEMs from undercutting the price, because they're going to have to pay a license. And for them to make a profit, they can't really undercut Tesla's price. So I think Tesla will be insulated in that. Then on top of that, I think Ford indicated, I think it, from an industry perspective, as the supercharging network expands, the battery sizes are going to decrease for everybody, which will increase capacity. I think it was like a 25% increase in capacity, decrease in weight, increase in efficiency. Then on top of that, I was thinking about, and an additional, on top of that, there's more government money that's going to flow Tesla's way for undertaking these infrastructure improvements, maybe in Europe too, and maybe elsewhere. On top of that, I was thinking about all the commercial real estate and the problems we have with commercial real estate. And I'm thinking, because we have no more office workers, basically, and we have all the real estate that's empty. And I was thinking, and I've been thinking, how are we going to repurpose that real estate? And I was thinking, why don't we make these something of a futuristic car mall, where they make them charging facilities, and on top of that, they offer technological retail to consumers. They offer car accessories. They offer food. They offer entertainment, maybe some other facilities. But we then kind of change how malls operate and take advantage of that. And I guess the model for that in a small case would be they're opening up that restaurant and charging station in LA, in Midtown LA. It's not done yet, but I know it's undergoing. I think that would fit within that model. And then Tesla would become not just in the car business, then they become a real estate owner. And part of their business is leasing out their own real estate, in which part of their service is the charging is part of the service. So people have to be there anyway. So I think it's a great way for them to repurpose commercial real estate. Then on top of that, it's a way of them benefiting Ford and the unions. And to the extent that they had prior bad relationships with the unions, in effect, they're saving Ford, and they're saving all kinds of jobs for union workers. And I think also that would be a permit the dealership model to be eviscerated. In other words, Tesla would have saved Ford and whoever else. Dealership model goes out, but the unions can keep their jobs. That's the exchange, and it's better for the consumer no matter what. So that was what I thought about as I was sitting in the bathroom this morning, and there we go.
Fantastic. Mimi, did you have any thoughts off of what Richard said before I pick up some of your
Not really. I'm just going to say, I saw in the chat that someone asked if Ford will do the same in Europe. But in Europe, it's not the same case. In Europe, right, Tesla superchargers are already open to all brands, practically everywhere. So it's not the same thing. You pay a little bit more, or you pay a monthly fee, and then you pay the same as a Tesla owner.
Yeah. And that's mostly driven by the regulations in Europe, right? Because the government essentially forced Tesla to have a open standard with the rest of the automakers, right? They weren't able to force their own plug.
Oh, you mean with a plug? Yeah. It's a standard. Yeah,
I figured. Yeah, I think I like where your head's going with sort of that thought process there, Richard, with this opening up other business opportunities for Tesla. It's almost like a McDonald's thing, right? Like the reason why McDonald's got as profitable as they were, it wasn't because they were selling burgers, it's because it was a real estate game, not so much a burger game. So I can see potential there. I think the more I think about this, and we were kind of joking, but half not really joking. Richard was saying that this may have been the greatest announcement of all time, even bigger than when the universe was created. And, and of course, this is a little tongue in cheek, but I think within the context of Tesla's story arc of it as a auto manufacturer, I don't see how this isn't in the top three developments that has ever been announced. And it got a lot of attention yesterday, and I think there's a reason why. It's because now we have a 100-plus-year-old automaker, so really an American icon, and a brand that sells the best-selling vehicle in the United States in the F1 and the F Series truck. And their CEO have openly come out and said the reason why we're partnering with Tesla, a brand new electric vehicle automaker in the States, is because they have a competitive advantage that is good for us. And we're going to come out and basically give Tesla their props and their kudos as a long-standing legacy automaker. And we're going to go in partnership with them and do so on Elon Musk's platform on Twitter, right? So it was a very it was just a very rare instance of open cooperation and transparency, and I think a lot of just humbleness, right? A lot of humbleness from both parties, because I think they were both very complimentary of each. And so what's the dynamic that's now forming around Ford is, the timing of the announcement is fascinating to me, because this doesn't really go into effect until next year. So we still are more than half a year away from this actually going live. And then, by the way, producer wife, bring up Tesla's stock price when you get a chance to, as I'm talking, because I think that's another development that's happening today that we should talk about at some point. And so now you have Ford, a long-standing legacy automaker, that's basically confirming Tesla's long-standing strategy of the charging network being incredibly paramount to the electric vehicle experience. And this is something that was really began rolling out in 2013. And after 10 years, it finally reached a point where the first domino has fallen from that perspective, where a quote unquote competitor in this case is saying, yes, you have the best product out there. And so we're going to partner with you, not because of your cars, but because of the infrastructure you've built. So I think this proves, people keep wanting, like, people say Tesla is a car manufacturer. This is proof, outside of the energy business, outside of the full self-driving business, outside of the bot business, outside of the AI business, that Tesla is way more than just a car company. They are building out a lot of different things. And I think from Ford's standpoint, it really highlights how Jim Farley and the Ford team are being very pragmatic about the transition to electric vehicles. And this partnership ahead of time, ahead of is being released, they're basically saying, hey guys, we are preparing to move our business over to the electric vehicle segment. And they're still talking about how we're going to grow both businesses, but I think that's just corporate speak to not freak out investors. I think everybody knows that there's going to be one of these. The gas business is going to go down and the electric vehicle is going to go up. And Ford's going to have to be masterful about how they navigate that. But they're placing their bets very openly and very clearly that they're very serious about this transition. I don't know why they would announce this 6 months ahead of it actually being available. Because, why wouldn't they just wait until, say, January 1st, 2024, when the adapter is ready or whenever it's going to be ready, and then make the announcement? And the reason why I think that is because they're trying to drum up as much demand for their electric vehicles today as humanly possible to get ready for the adapter coming out. Because I think the Mach-E is having some problems selling right now against the Model Y, and saying this at this time ensures that they have the demand going into next year. So I have a lot more thoughts, but I'm going to shut up before I monopolize this conversation. Any thoughts from either of you?
I think that's really, I agree with you with the last part with the Mach-E and Model Y, and that's why it's so nice. I mean, it's really generous. I mean, Tesla didn't have to do that. They're doing fine on their own, really. But like Elon, I think he was really honest when he said that, yeah, we're happy to help with whatever, because he said so many times that it's not competition. We want them all to succeed. Tesla can't make all the cars needed. And I think he really wants Ford to succeed. And yeah. I like that.
Go ahead, Richard.
Yeah, I mean, it was an admission, you win. So Ford says, you win. So we're not going to fight it. We're going to make the best of the situation. Whatever that ends up being, we're going to make the best. We're going to be forward thinking. That may be also why they acted now. So they're trying to be forward thinking as opposed to being reactive. And maybe they could plan accordingly. Maybe that 6 months is really helpful for them. So I think that's what I drew it. But bottom line is, I think for every car, so this is my own speculation. So I think Tesla thinks for every car that's on the road, whether it be their car or somebody else's car, they are going to get a royalty or a percentage of that car operating. And so the more cars, the merrier. That's money in their pocket, especially if they don't have to manufacture those cars. They have no cost. All that is like, pure profit. So that's why I think they'll promote the heck out of it, especially if they believe FSD is in the can. It's just whether it's 2023, 2024. If they have that belief, then why not? Because everybody else is going to pay them money for it. And then I was thinking about, how Elon was talking about that Tesla would be bigger than Apple and Aramco combined. Correct. I think that's what he said. So I was trying to think how the model's changing. So I think now it's more of the Apple software and kind of name dominance, and NVIDIA on the hardware side, plus, and it just turns out the irony of it, plus the Ford manufacturing. And that's what it is. The software, hardware, and the manufacturing. And I think they'll sell it all. Especially if they think, by the way, if Elon says, I think this stuff is worth a lot, but it's peanuts compared to what we're going to do in the future, then why not sell the stuff that's worth peanuts and make passive money that you don't have to, you don't have to have no cost, and move on to what you really think is going to generate the big time revenue, the bot and, beyond. So I think it's like all win-win, whether they execute 100%, and the time frame obviously we know time frame is sometimes difficult, but I think, the model is get as many vehicles on the road, period. And we're not only does it fit our mission statement, but we're going to benefit financially, and I could sell it to all the shareholders.
That last point is the most interesting part of this whole thing, right? Because one of the very appealing things for a lot of Tesla investors and fans is that Tesla's mission statement is for the betterment of humanity, right? It has a big vision behind it to advance the avenue of sustainable transport and energy generation. What started with the car, but what do we have now? Based on like the way you've articulated it, really is like really drives home just how massive this is. Tesla now has a financial incentive to ensure there are as many cars as humanly possible on the road, and they don't even have to be Teslas. They just need an electric vehicle on the road, because every single electric vehicle on the road now means that they're going to profit off of it. So they've aligned a human incentive, and now they have a financial incentive. And this is one thing Elon Musk is extremely good at, is figuring out how those two things align together.
And we know there's going to be an app store, right? We know there's going to be a Tesla app store, and that's going to be available to everybody. They'll charge a monthly fee. That's ongoing income. I mean, that's the Apple side. That's the Apple model. I think that's just coming. That's coming, and that's going to be gigantic money. And we all know that none of those, whatever we're talking about now, none of that is baked into the models. None of that. They only factor in income that is real and current, not that maybe in the future. We've heard that from Gary Black enough. And all the stuff that we're talking about, I think, is substantially more than the combined income of Tesla to this point.
Yep, I agree. Mimi, any thoughts from your standpoint? Okay.
Nope.
Couple super chats we want to pull up. Producer Web has in stage that are applicable to this thing. Chris, thank you so much for the $10 super chat. I really appreciate you. Beer Fund is growing massively. Is the UAW, which is the United Auto Workers Union, which Ford partners with for the factory workers, is the UAW union going to get Jim fired? How do you guys think there is any sort of tie between this announcement and that potential dynamic? How do you guys think about this?
I think it's going to be the flip side. I think he's going to be able to sell it to the unions that he's going to save their jobs, because he's going to let Ford stay in business. He's going to let Ford expand faster. I think they're going to love it.
Mimi?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, even the union realized that gas cars are dying, and Ford really need to ramp up their EV production, and anything that it works in favor of that is a good thing. So no, I don't think he's going to get fired.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I think this, if anything, the more business Ford gets, the better it is for the survival of the labor union. But I think what's interesting is that the labor union did openly criticize the current administration's handling of the EV transition, and so I'm guessing, I'm hoping it's posturing. I'm hoping it's like, hey, this is how I'm haggling a better deal potentially with Ford and GM and Stellantis and all the good stuff. But if the labor union really is not pro EV transition because, well, you need less people to do it, then they'll be 100% out of a job, because they won't be making any gas cars and they won't be making any EV cars. So like, where are your fees going to come from? So they have an incentive to ensure that the EV transition works. Thank you very much, Chris, for the $10 super chat. Is there another one, producer wife?
And by the way, I think, the other part of that is that they'll get training, and that's got to be part of it. The unions have to train their workers in their new skills.
Yep, 100% agreed. SLPC, thank you so much for the 10 pound sterling super chat. Thank you. That's like what, $78 or something? When Farley talked about paying to drive a $20,000 battery around, the idea of selling a car while retaining ownership of the battery came to my head. What do you think? Yeah, I think this idea of sort of ownership of the battery is sort of outdated in my opinion, because as we advance the technology for electric vehicles, and especially if you take Tesla's goal of creating a 1,000,000-mile drivetrain, a battery and drivetrain system, then it doesn't really matter. You just, the chassis is the chassis, and then you make it so that it's as reliable as possible, and the car will go 1,000,000 miles. So it's just going to be commoditized like anything else. I don't think it's going to be that concept is not going to be as prevalent. How do you guys read this statement in question? Any thoughts?
No, I agree.
Okay.
Yeah, I think as the cost of the batteries decrease, then it becomes less of a valuable asset. And I guess NIO, the Chinese company, I guess has the reverse model because they have battery swaps. So you never actually own the battery. So they take the opposite end. So I think they would think the opposite. They would draw the opposite conclusion.
Yeah, and Ford did openly say that they want to get away from having that expensive battery because they want to get more to a model where making the vehicle as efficient as possible with just that sweet spot battery, which I think Tesla has nailed, and that's why they've been so successful. And then partnering it with a fast charging network so that when folks are traveling, a stop is sort of aligned with when they would usually use the restroom and pick something up to eat or drink, and then by the time they're back to their car, it's ready to go. So
I think they also said they were, and I don't think they said it this way, but that they were going to limit the number of models they were going to do. They weren't going to go after highly competitive areas. They were going to kind of stay in their own zone, which is kind of the Tesla model, and unlike GM, so it's kind of in opposition to the GM model where they're going to do 500 models and sell four of each, and 200 total.
Yeah. How silly does GM look now, by the way? Yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Mimi.
I thought it was really interesting. It's kind of like the future. It will be a reverse. Now people are just trying to make cars with more and more range, but with more chargers and a better network, and people getting used to that. Okay, I can charge my car for 10 minutes and go another. I think it's actually good. And Elon agreed that we're going towards smaller cars with smaller batteries, and that would make it easier to mass produce more.
Yeah, but I still think there is a use case for, say, a long distance, like a Cybertruck type vehicle. Yeah,
absolutely. But I think that most people would realize that most of the time you don't drive that far.
100%. Correct. Yeah, most use cases, like 80% plus of use cases, will be handled by that compact car with a 250 to 300 mile battery, no problem. It's no issue whatsoever. Perfect.
And again, I think people will get trained. In this country, they'll get trained in it. If they'll learn that this is the way they go, and it'll be their way of going. And old guys like me, we won't. We'll adapt, but adapt much slower. But at some point in time, it'll be that moment. That one moment, and I'll just take off.
Yeah, agreed. Thank you both for the super chats. We will have a Q&A section at the end of the live stream, the last half hour or so. So if you do have a question you want to ask, do stick around for that. I want to play a clip from the MSNBC, the CNBC Jim Farley interview real quick. Did either of you watch this yet, Mimi or Richard?
I think I watched it, yes.
Okay.
This is not the Spaces interview?
No. It was right after the Spaces.
This morning?
Yeah. It was either from this morning or from yesterday, but it's outside of the Twitter space, and this is Jim Farley speaking with CNBC about their partnership. I just want to play it because I think there's some additional tidbits in there that are helpful for us to get our head wrapped around this equation a little bit, and I would love to get y'all's reaction. So go ahead and play this, producer wife.
Early next year, Ford owners will be granted access to thousands of Tesla superchargers across the United States and Canada. It's part of a new partnership announced on Twitter Spaces by Tesla CEO Elon Musk and Ford CEO Jim Farley. Farley joins us right now, first on Squawk Box this morning, to talk more about it. And Jim, welcome. This is some pretty big and pretty surprising news.
Yeah, well, it was a big week for us, Becky and Andrew. And this announcement, we think, will really help our EV customers have a much better experience.
It was surprising just from the perspective that you all are rivals. I don't know if you want to call respectful rivals, frenemies, something along those lines. How did this deal come about? What happened?
We've been actually working on it for a couple of years. We know that charging, we're number 2 in EV sales in the US behind Tesla. And we know charging is a really big deal for our customers and adoption. And we're now scaling. We're like basically doubling our EV capacity this year. And we're going to get to 2 million in a couple of years. So this is a big deal for the company and for our customers. And we have about 10,000 fast chargers now. This is going to double that. So 22,000 fast chargers. It'll be the best network of fast charging in the country for any brand. And that's why we were interested in it. We also like their locations. We like their charging technology. It works really well as well. So in 25, we're going to put their plug on our vehicle.
Yeah, Jim, I have to say, as a consumer, I think it's great. I love the idea of some sort of standardization or moving towards standardization in the industry. No consumer wants to get stuck feeling like, oh, I finally found a charging station, but guess what? I can't use it. And you probably need a lot more of this to really beef up adoption of EVs across the country. What I think is interesting about this is, this is, if you went back to the VHS Betamax comparison on all of these things, VHS eventually won out. You are choosing to go with Tesla, which has been riding with the NACS standard, versus the CCS standard that the Biden administration and most of the U.S. automakers, EV makers, have been pushing. Why Tesla? Why this standard? And do you think by you and Tesla teaming up together, you kind of win over and can change what's going to be the standard?
It's a great question. So we believe that customers should have, as you said, the option of using either standard, and with adapters and software, we could do that both. But we really like the Tesla standard from a customer standpoint. When you look at how easy it is to plug in, if you drop the cord, the Tesla system is more robust. The other standard is great, and we'll have adapters for that. But we also really love the locations. Like I remember I was going on vacation with my kids. My kids kept saying, "Hey, Dad, can we stop there? That's one of those Tesla supercharging." I was like, "No, kids, we're going to go over here behind this building." And so it's a bet for our customers, and we want our customers to be able to use both systems actually with adapters.
Jim, long term, when you think about this friends, enemy, frenemy situation, if Tesla becomes that standard, is that good or bad for you? I mean, as you try to evaluate and think through what that means over time.
Yeah, we think it's good for us because we're going to have the Ford Pass software. So people don't have to leave the Ford Pass software that they use for charging at their home or to unlock the vehicle or use the phone as a key. When they go use the Tesla supercharger, they're still using Ford. We were very concerned if they had to switch over to use that Tesla software, but that was part of the deal. And it was a deal breaker for us for the reason you mentioned.
And how seamless, therefore, will payment and the like be using those superchargers?
Yeah, so early next year on the Ford Pass app, we're going to have a bunch of different payment options like we do today. So customers just use their, e-pay system, whatever they choose. And there'll be no issues. It'll be super simple. We're going to ship an adapter to everyone who's bought a Ford EV. This is not just for the future. It's for all the people who already bought our vehicles. So they'll get an adapter from Ford. They go on Ford Pass. They pick that payment option they want. All the billing is the same as it is today. So it's going to be super easy.
And what do you think long-term the likelihood is that GM and others will follow suit? And that effectively the Tesla superchargers will become the standard?
I think there's a chance. The CCS is a great standard, but it was pretty much done by kind of a committee, and I think GM and others are going to have a big choice to make. Do they want to have fast charging for a lot of customers, or do they want to stick to their standard and have less charging? So I don't know, but I think we're number 2 last year. They were number 1. I think that's going to be a tough choice for those companies.
Instant reaction. Mimi, Richard, any thoughts? You want to unmute first, Mimi?
Sorry, my dog started barking. I thought it was funny, the two options in the end that really weren't no options.
Yeah.
You choose Tesla and it's good, or you don't and it's not good.
Yeah.
But I think it's interesting. I really think that this Ford app thing was a deal breaker, because that's where I heard it before, that they've been talking about this for years. And why is it happening now and not before? And I read some comments today that some people thought it was a loss for Tesla, that people are not forced to get their app, the Tesla app. So I guess, but I can understand as a Ford customer, I would love not having to do that. In Europe, you have to get the Tesla app to use the supercharger.
Richard, any thoughts?
Yeah, I was wondering why Jim Farley was barking like a dog. That's my first question. It was interesting to me. He focused on location, seemed like a big deal. So the real estate was important to him in my mind. He liked their locations and maybe their frontage, and that they had secured those already. And I think that was important. The thing that I thought was interesting is he said that the other standards were created by a committee, and I guess the implication would be not engineers, and they didn't know what they were doing. I mean, if I'm going to read in, they had no idea what they were doing. So we have the ones by Tesla that were designed to work, and so you have your choice. You could have 3 cars charged or 3 million. Go for it. What's your choice? And the fact that he said they were number 2 means that 1 and 2 are going this direction. So that I think he's trying to lead it that way. And to the extent that Tesla conceded, and who knows what the negotiations were, but to the extent that Tesla conceded on the app, I presume they got something else in return. And we may not necessarily know about that, because I don't get the impression, and I don't know this, but I don't get the impression if Elon wants something that he's going to forego it in a negotiation. I think he'll just forego the deal. If he felt there was a problem, or he didn't secure something he wanted, they wouldn't have made the arrangement. So I expect that there's probably some consideration that went for that.
Yeah. I think the last comment maybe you highlighted is, I think it speaks really a lot about what it means to be an automaker that is not going to be on the NACS, so the Tesla standard, moving forward. Because really the dirty secret, which is not really a secret, everybody who's an EV enthusiast knows, is that the alternative to the Tesla supercharger network with Electrify America and whoever else is not a good charging experience. Forget the plug. The plug itself is much bigger, prone to breaking, unreliable, but then the charging network itself is quite poor versus the Tesla supercharger network. And so when a legacy automaker comes out and says that without saying it, I think puts so much pressure on every other automaker, your GMs, your BMWs, or Mercedes, your Volkswagens, right, your Kia Hyundais, that if they don't come out and really change their port over to the Tesla port, they're going to be at a natural disadvantage in the marketplace. So not only is going to be Tesla an automaker that's going to be stealing sales away from you, but now so will Ford. And I think Jim coming out and saying this sort of reinforces this idea. And then the thing that keeps going through my mind, and this is sort of related to the other legacy automakers, GM, I think, boy, like this is such a bad place to be if you're a GM from their EV standpoint, because now you have your biggest historical competitor in Ford. Ford GM has always been a huge competition for really the last God knows how many years. And now, Ford is partnering up with Tesla and basically saying, yep, we're number 1 and 2. We don't know who you are, right? And so within that context, when you look at what Mary Barra and GM have done, well, patting themselves on the back as the EV leader, but they're number 3 in sales and they don't have the best charging standard now. How does a GM customer or the GM leadership feel in this scenario, and how much pressure are they under to make something happen, or do they still have too much hubris to realize that this is a very dire situation if you're GM, especially as the transition moves away from gas cars into EVs? So that's kind of what goes through my mind when I watch that interview. Any additional thoughts from either of you?
Ford and Tesla should do that educational ads together now. This would be the perfect timing. About charging, about everything. Yeah, I think they're pressured. They have to be. I mean, if they're not completely blind and stupid and just too filled up with their own importance, they have to realize it. Even Mary Barra has to. I think so. What I don't understand is, why is the other networks so bad? I mean, I never heard in Europe that there's such a problem with charging, but in the States you hear that all the time about all others except Tesla.
Because it's not as regulated, I believe, as it is in Europe, and then the companies that are doing them are just not that great of companies. They just don't. I don't know if they don't have the right financial incentive to make sure their charging network works. What my gut tells me, and this is sort of like, this is a theory, but this is whenever you have government involved in the States when it comes to this stuff, because the Electrify America charging network is really driven by CCS, which is a government pushed standard, and it's getting government funding. My guess is that the folks that are running Electrify America are making more than enough money from these government credits, or whatever you want to call it, and they don't have a financial incentive to actually ensure the charging network works, because those people are making their money and they're not really that interested in ensuring they have a good product. And that's why it's not a good network, in my opinion. I could be 100% wrong, but I think I've seen enough of that sort of dynamic to identify when that's going on, but I could be wrong.
When I was watching that Farley interview, and he's not the comedian, right? Not the Farley comedian. It's the other guy. Maybe it's a brother or something. I don't know.
Maybe I think they are related.
Are they?
I'll find out. Go ahead.
Okay. But what struck me is when we were talking about it earlier, the standards, and Farley basically said the standard should be Tesla's standard because it works. I'll interpret it for him, and it made me think that, so if Tesla's plan is, okay, we get them with first the chargers, and next I bring them on board on FSD with a royalty, so that becomes the standard in the United States. If we have the 1-2 as basically this is how they do it. Maybe you could have more than one standard that's acceptable, but it might be a way of, because it's not just having 1-2, it's 1-2 attached to a union. So it'd be very difficult, because regulators now, it's easy to take shots at Tesla because you're not taking shots at unions who are funding certain politicians, obviously. But to the extent now you bring unions into the equation because they're benefiting, I think it kind of helps Tesla get their standards approved to the extent it works. Because what Farley said, this works, so that's why we're going to go for it. If FSD works and then Ford adopts it, I think that the idea would then be that it'll be adopted as a standard in the United States. And that would then support the licensing of the FSD to whoever. And again, I just think the revenue would be astronomical.
Yeah. Maybe any thoughts?
No, I was just thinking, wasn't Tesla, they're going to open some of the superchargers in the IRA. Wasn't that a deal that they are going to open superchargers for all brands? Or is that changed?
I think, well, they had an aspiration to do so through their Magic Dock, but I think maybe the momentum has shifted now, because now you have an automaker that's saying, well, now we're just going to use your plug. Right. So I think it's getting there anyway. And I think there is a government incentive to build out a charging network. I think you get credits as well.
Yeah.
And Mimi, I'm confused why you're asking about the Irish Republican Army, but whatever.
Yes, I know. I'm too. It's stupid to have that. They should have called it something else.
Real quick, the age-old question, is Jim Farley related to Chris Farley? The answer is yes. He's the cousin brother late great Chris Farley. So yeah, there you go. Another reason to like Jim Farley, man. He's got a lot going for him lately. He's having a great few quarters, man. Opening up the books. Maybe the EV performance of Ford isn't that great, but I think from a decision standpoint and really leading the company, I think he's doing quite a good job with
he's kind of, in my mind, he's taken more of a Herbert Diess kind of stance on it.
Yeah,
kind of accepted the inevitable, and Diess would have moved VW. Would have moved them a line with Tesla. They're just too stubborn, and they want to like burn a bunch of money, and eventually they'll come around. But that's interesting.
I think the other thing too, we were talking about sort of the Ford Pass working with the supercharger network, which basically means that Ford gained backdoor access into the supercharger network without needing the Tesla app. I think is maybe a tell or a signal about what we were talking about earlier in the sort of this forum, that perhaps Tesla is starting to test and really play with the idea of opening up more of its company and allowing others to take advantage of it that are not directly related to just using their customer-facing thing. So they're basically licensing their OS for the charging network, is basically their API, right? They have an API available now that Ford's going to be able to plug into through their app. So the idea around full self-driving licensing, maybe some sort of drivetrain partnership, battery partnership, raw material sourcing partnership, car OS partnership, there's just the floodgates could open at any second. And the incentive now for Ford is, now that they have this relationship with Tesla, and knowing that Tesla has such an immensely big supply chain around EVs, really the largest one in the world, how much more work could they do together to secure those limited raw materials? And I think the question that Jim had for Elon on the Twitter space around really being curious about how the refining project was going in Corpus Christi around lithium, I think is a signal that says that there might be, hey, Farley knows what's needed, right? They need some cheap batteries to be made in order to make a profit. So, hey, Elon, maybe I'll put this in your ear and publicly, so that maybe now there is a forcing function for us to work together, because there might be a lot of interest out there. So just, it's fascinating, man. This one little announcement has so many implications, It's wild.
Yeah, especially if we end up with all these side margins that are all software related. So there's no cost to them, and they are huge. Means that the margins on the actual vehicles can be tiny, and the cost of the vehicles can continue to decrease, and that expands the market to and literally to the entire planet.
Yeah. Mimi, any thoughts?
Nope.
No.
Again, the biggest thing to ever happen in the universe.
Yeah. An amazing
Bigger than
day.
the universe itself. Let's run a quick poll, producer wife, for our channel members, or really for the community, before we get into Q&A. Let's ask, do you think that Ford will survive the EV transition after this news? Because I know in the EV world, there's a lot of discussion about legacy automakers having a huge struggle shifting from gas to EVs. And so now I'm wondering, specifically to Ford, write it in the best way you can, because she's a way better writer than I am. Do you think that Ford will now survive the EV transition? And then yes, no, and whatever other option you think applies. We'll start our Q&A here soon. Let's discuss any other topics the forum has. Richard, Mimi. Richard, I see you want to go off mute. What do you have?
Yeah, so I have a few things. The theft in Germany of that intellectual property that occurred. So there was that 100 megabyte file that was stolen. Did you see? You're not aware of that?
With Tesla?
Yeah, Tesla. Yeah. And then Tesla received. There's an investigation going on. It's an ex-employee. He was going out the door. He took a bunch of stuff, and then he basically made it available to some type of press publication or site. Tesla became aware of that, sent him a cease and desist nicely, not to use the information, and it's in flux. So it was kind of an embarrassment, but they have to deal with it. it had personal information. So they're getting it on both sides. The government's kind of saying, why did you let the person have access? Plus, they have to deal now with the information itself. I'm sure they will go heavily after the person who released the information. I think they know the person who released the information and try an example of him or her. And I think they have to in order to please the government there also.
Yeah. So here,
yeah, I was just going to say that the authorities were going. They said that that their security was too bad.
So this was published yesterday evening at 10 p.m. Eastern. German authorities looking into possible data protection violations by Tesla, newspaper reports. Let's read the first paragraph or so. Just give a little bit of context. German authorities have serious indications of possible data protection violations by Tesla. Handelsblatt newspaper reported on Thursday, citing the data protection office in the state where the car maker has its European gigafactory. Reports said that U.S. electric car manufacturer has failed to adequately protect data from consumers, employees, and business partners, citing 100 gigabytes of confidential data leaked to the newspaper by a whistleblower. Okay.
So it was one person who stole the information. So I don't really think that's a pattern of misconduct, but it's obviously sensitive information, and I'm sure they will learn from it. But overall, I think they're going to go hammer. They're going to hammer that person to make an example of it. Because again, they have to demonstrate to the German government, we take this seriously, and the only way they can make it is to make an example of that person.
Yeah.
But I think it's interesting that the paper, the Handelsblatt, it means the trading paper.
Thank you.
Or the commerce paper. I think it's interesting that they called the person a whistleblower. Because for me, that means that the data shows something that's not good. But it doesn't seem to be that way. I wonder why they're using it.
Yeah, I don't know in the EU if there's a whistleblower statute. You know, because in the United States there is under certain circumstances. But the way I saw it portrayed is it's funny how you present it. Alternatively, presented as he violated his non-disclosure agreement. One or the other. Either he's a whistleblower or he's a criminal. One or the other.
Yep.
I don't know.
Yep.
Anyway, but it's a serious matter, and I'm sure they will learn from it. And how much can you do? Can you prevent somebody from disclosing what they know personally? No, you really can't. If it's in my brain, I can communicate that. So all they could do is do a better job and communicate that. I just saw it was a big deal, and because it was in Germany, that's what's got my attention, because of the factory in Germany and because the Germans so far have not been easy to deal with for Tesla. So
I wonder about how he got the data out. I mean, I wonder what kind of control system they have.
Yeah, I mean, in Tesla, like if you have access to the data, you have access to the data, and there is if somebody really wants to leak information, I mean, they could, the 100 gigabytes could have just been them taking a picture of the code on the screen, right? Yeah. There's 1,000 different ways of doing it. So it really comes down to the individual to not do something. So we'll see where this goes. How long do you think it will take before we get a good understanding of what happened here?
Oh, I think it'll take a time. Months, I would think. Another story I saw that was interesting was BYD got in trouble with Great Wall Motors. So Great Wall Motors apparently was the first Chinese EV company listed in China, and apparently they tested two of BYD's the top-selling plug-in hybrids, and they violated the emission standards in China. And so their position is, and they communicated that to regulators, their position is that BYD is knowingly violating emission standards in China. And why that's complicated is because, they just passed those other emission standards that come into the same as the EU. I think they're the equivalent of the EU standards, but they came into effect and they just gave them like a brief extension through the end of the year. But those people can't sell those cars after a certain date. So I don't know if BYD is going to suffer the same kind of consequences, which obviously would hurt their company and their stock and all those things.
Real quick, Great Wall Motor says rival BYD failing on hybrid emissions. This is from yesterday, 257. Let's read the first couple of paragraphs like the other one. From Shanghai, Great Wall Motor has filed a report with China's regulators against BYD. It said on Thursday, claiming its rivals' two top-selling hybrid models did not meet emission standards and triggering a rare public spat. BYD rejected the claim, saying its vehicles met China's emission standards and that it reserved the right to take legal action against Great Wall. The public accusation from Hebei-based Great Wall, China's first listed car maker, has thrown it into an unusual open fight with BYD, the country's largest and most successful maker of electric and plug-in hybrid vehicles, that has emerged as a rival to Tesla. Great Wall closed down 7.3%. Shares of BYD fell 5.4%. Interesting. So it's a little bit of domestic war of words between the two automakers. Okay. Yeah, this is a little fascinating dynamic.
This is very uncommon that you see Chinese companies attacking each other.
I feel like China, like the Chinese culture in general, is to ensure that you don't want to show any weakness, especially to international agents, right? So international.
So in this case, and I heard somebody who was thinking about that, and they were suggesting that's what gives it also more legs. That the fact that it was done at all suggests, and that Great Wall is a respected company in China, that was suggesting, and they had the vehicles, so it wasn't a question they didn't have the vehicles, and there had been prior questions about BYD's emissions in Europe. So it's not the time, but it's the first time it's in China, and obviously it would be a black eye for BYD.
But it was interesting that the Great Wall stock fell more than the BYD.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
I think it might not be popular in China that you do this. You're supposed to keep it hidden. You're not supposed to openly criticize.
Maybe. I saw one other thing that caught my attention was there was an article in Benziga. I don't know if you're familiar with that publication. And it was talking about Warren Buffett, that he was, his comment was he didn't have like a winner. He didn't know who the winner was going to be in the EV space. And the writer was commenting, and there's other, basically competition, and retail is interested in these new ones that are coming out. And they cited, and I haven't looked up the company, they cited, this was their example of the competition is coming for Tesla. The name of the company is Civilized Cycles. I've never heard of it. I've never heard of it, but it was amazing to me. That was the article. That's what the writer suggested was the competition that was coming.
Unbelievable.
Civilized Cycles?
Yeah, Civilized Cycles. That was the name of the...
Interesting.
Yeah.
I have to look that up.
It's all in the marketing.
That's right.
It's all in the marketing. Yeah. So let me ask you this. I mean, that's an interesting little topic there before we get into Q&A. Do you think that the Ford partnership, knowing a fund like Berkshire Hathaway loves stability, they love companies that are self-sustaining, they have moats that are going to have a secure future. Do you think Ford partnering with Tesla is a signal for, say, Warren Buffett or Charlie Munger that says, holy crap, Tesla might be a lot more stable than we initially thought, and it removed one of the risk factors that we had? Could that be something that could play there? Just maybe riff a little bit on that. Do you think there's anything there?
I think that they are so smart, they should have understood that by now.
Yeah. I think it does make it less risky because it also insures Ford, but I don't know if they own Ford. I don't think
they do.
Yeah, so if they didn't own Ford, then I wouldn't think they would buy into Tesla after this. And plus, these guys, by the way, their combined age is 394. So I don't know if they're going to be stepping outside the box and change their strategy now if they haven't done it already. They still seem to buy oil. Like, Apple, Occidental, that's kind of their current, Apple's done pretty well. Occidental's done pretty well. And, so.
Yeah. Yeah,
they should be in a museum. Sure. No, they should be in a museum, those guys. But
I just wonder, they did give that little talk at their annual shareholder meeting, and they said they really respected Elon, they really respected Tesla, but it's just it wasn't their style because they just want easy investments, right? I just wonder, like, at some point, Tesla should become an easy investment, with cash flows and these sort of unique infrastructure capabilities from a charging standpoint, a very strong battery supply chain, a very strong EV supply chain, energy generation. It just, at some point, it becomes easy, right? You would have to think.
When I watch those guys, what I just amazed that at their age they're coherent, sharp, and and very relaxed up there. Speaking. That's incredible, and that's why they have been so successful, because they're amazing people, really.
Yeah.
But he is invested in BYD, isn't he?
He's
More?
Small position.
Yeah, they decreased their interest in.
I know that they sold off. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They don't like the political environment. No. That's why they bought Taiwan Semiconductor, and they had it for a very short period. And when they became uncomfortable with that political situation, they bailed on that too.
Yeah. So the secret to a long life is not being a billionaire. It's drinking Coca-Cola and eating M&Ms, right? Is that what we learned from those two? Okay.
Drinking enough Coca-Cola.
Oh, enough. Okay. Fair enough. Cool. Any
other topics? Neuralink? How about Neuralink?
Go ahead.
Neuralink was.
Oh yeah, FDA approved, right?
Gave its first approval.
Let's pull that up.
That could be huge. That could be huge.
Why?
Like BBC called them the brain chip company, Elon's brain chip company.
Yeah, I mean, idea is you're going to enable. I mean, I think a basic idea is you're going to enable people to walk eventually who are paralyzed, etc., which would be
really cool.
Still amazing. And
they did it yesterday in Switzerland. A Swiss company. They do the same thing, and I saw pictures of a guy who was walking.
Yeah, that's really amazing.
Yeah,
and I have to think it also goes. It's going to play into the robotic side of things also, I would think.
Yeah,
just in movement, in terms of types of movements, smoothing it out, that kind of thing.
Yeah, it's one of those plays that everybody has been so. It's such a mind-blowing development what Neuralink is doing, that any positive news is always like, holy crap, I'm so excited. Real quick, for those that have missed this came out yesterday at around 5:00, shortly after the Twitter space between Jim Farley and Elon Musk. We are excited to share, this is from Neuralink, we're excited to share that we have received the FDA's, the Food Drug Administration, approval to launch our first in-human clinical study. This is a result of incredible work by the Neuralink team in close collaboration with the FDA, and represents an important first step that will one day allow our technology to help many people. Recruitment is not yet open for a clinical trial. We'll announce more information on this soon. This is freaking awesome. I mean, the thought process behind this really long term is to, like you said, solve folks that are potentially paralyzed, really any limb, right? I don't think there's any limit to what they can resolve. Solving brain disorders. It's really cool, man. And I'm really curious to see how this develops over time.
Yeah. And then the flip side, of course, is like the AI side. We're worried about the Terminator on the AI side. And the Neuralink is people are concerned that the government's going to take control over their brain. I'm slightly exaggerating, but I'm sure there's a segment of the population. Well, there's a lot of the population are concerned about getting chipped, right? At least in the United States, because there's casual discussion about this. People are concerned about getting a chip just for location purposes or whatever. I can only imagine what it is when you start to implant chips and people's concerns about that. So again, it's a complete sociological change that might take 50, 100 years to go, but you're going to have to make people feel comfortable with the technology and the people that are in control of the technology.
Yeah,
I think it's amazing.
Well, it's totally amazing, but I think what's interesting, some of those fears I always find interesting, because I think a lot of us forget that we already have a device that tracks everything we do, has a camera and microphone, and it has our deepest, darkest secrets
Yeah.
already. So okay, I don't
I
see
mean,
how.
so many people thought
yeah.
that there were chips in the vaccine. I mean,
Yeah.
those
Right.
people are never going to be happy with putting. Let's hope they're not getting
Wait, you mean there
paralyzed, so
wasn't a
they
chip in the vaccine?
You're controlled, Farsad. Maybe you're not vaccinated, then you're
They
not
were-
We just got
controlled.
demonetized.
No, they were corn. They were corn
Yeah.
chips. They were ground corn chips. I
Oh,
think.
corn
Yeah.
chips. Okay, that's what it was. Okay. Right.
I wonder if we have celebrated that Model Y was the best-selling worldwide
Oh,
car
yeah.
in the first quarter.
So many good news, eh?
Yeah.
My goodness. Let me go ahead and pull this up as well. Something that I think Elon Musk was alluding to for at least a year, where he would expect Model Y to become the best-selling car globally by a certain year. I think he started teasing this 1 or 2 years ago, one of the quarterly.
I think it was
earnings
2
calls,
years
if I
ago.
remember.
Yeah.
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 It was a while. I just posted the tweet in the private chat, producer wife, when you get a chance. Pull it
Now
up.
we're
This
here.
is from the man that never sleeps, Mr. Sawyer Merritt, friend of the show. So yeah, when you get a second, pull it up, producer wife, and then we'll
I think he
Business.
produces the best and most credible information about Tesla. Period.
Yep.
Okay.
That's my opinion.
He deserves that praise. Yeah, there are so many awesome sources out there, and what I really love about Sawyer, just how quick, man, he's so quick. Like the second
Mhm.
something breaks, it's like out,
Mhm.
and he's like
Yeah.
also running a company on the side. It's like crazy. Yeah, I don't know how. Like the man that never sleeps, literally. Breaking for the first time ever, the Tesla Model Y was the best-selling car in the world in Q1 2023, according to JATO data for 53 markets worldwide. This would be the first EV to ever achieve this feat. And then go ahead and click on that chart or make it bigger
They're
for us.
all
Kristen.
Toyotas.
Look at that. So Tesla Model Y through the first quarter of 2023, 267,200 units. The second place is the Toyota Corolla, Levin, Elon, and Lingshan, which is all body types on the Corolla, which is different from the Model Y, which is exactly one form factor. Then you got the Toyota Hilux. How do you guys pronounce that?
Hilux.
Hilux, right?
I would say Helix, but
I think it's pronounced potato.
Okay, the Toyota
Okay.
Potato. Yeah. Then you got the Toyota RAV4 / Windlander, and then the Toyota Camry. What's interesting here is that Q1 is usually the slowest quarter of the year for auto. And so the Model Y is on pace to sell well above 1 million units in 2023, as long as we don't have a severe global recession. It's
What
crazy.
I think what's amazing is look at the difference between the Y and the Camry. That's 100,000 units in just one quarter. Camry used to be the biggest selling car in the United States.
Yeah.
No
It's
more.
wild.
No more.
no.
And then the Corolla is going to be at least what, $15,000 cheaper
Yeah.
on average, probably
Yeah, it's
more.
It's gonna be like a sub compact,
Yeah,
basically.
it's just so crazy. Pull up that chart again. I think this is for folks that I've gotten a lot of new followers lately. Thank you all so much for your support. And some of the folks are like not super Tesla nerds like we are, but I think it just really drives home how crazy of a feat this is when you have a probably average selling price of $50,000 EV only that doesn't sell in South America. It doesn't sell in Africa. It doesn't sell in a lot of parts of Asia. And it's number one versus Toyota Corolla, which is really the world car. Like the Toyota Corolla is freaking everywhere. And this pure EV that sells at an average of 50,000 is the number one selling car in the world that doesn't sell everywhere. This is crazy.
Plus
absolutely crazy.
these are gas powered, so these numbers are going to continue to decline, not to increase. And the Y is going to go up. So this gap is going to, widen as time goes on.
100%. And no advertising in a lot of the markets either.
And the subcontact's probably going to be in this position or this position.
Yeah. I mean, it's the you mean the Tesla, the smaller Tesla car? Yeah.
The Mexico car.
Yeah, it's going to be at least 2 to 3x Model Y. I would not be surprised. It's probably going to sell 1 million a quarter. when it's fully ramped, at least. So, all right. Any last topics before we hit our poll results and Q&A? Richard, Mimi, speak now or forever hold your peace until next week.
Ready for questions.
Okay, perfect. All right, let's go ahead and end our poll. We ran a poll a little bit earlier in this live stream. Producer wife, go ahead and do your magic and gather the data, and we'll post here shortly the results. The question was, do you think Ford will survive the EV transition with the announcement of the partnership between Ford and Tesla, and Ford utilizing Tesla's charging network? And the results are... Do you think that Ford will survive the EV transition? 86% say yes.
Wow.
13% say no. So a lot of there's always 1% missing on these polls. It's like, where's this 1% going? What the hell? Like, every poll doesn't equal to 100. Like, what's wrong with StreamYard? It's not that hard, y'all. Or YouTube.
You know what? It may be like it's a slightly more than 86 and slightly more than 13.
Right. So it's just round it down.
86.4 and 13.6. How's that?
Okay. We'll go with that. Perfect. What do you guys think about that? Are you guys surprised by the results?
No.
Where do you guys sit on this?
Yeah,
on this?
maybe. It's a little higher than I expected, actually. But I think that, well, since we're all Tesla nerds, we are now convinced, because Ford is working with Tesla, that they will survive. I think that it all comes down to, now they've done the smart thing. They've divided the EV and ICE companies or whatever, because I think that will be one of the hardest parts for all these companies, how they're going to get rid of the ICE side.
Yeah, and to me, it makes perfect sense, because, again, I think implied beyond just this charging issue, is that Ford is going to be somewhat dependent on Tesla, on its existence. And therefore, it will comply with what's in the best interest of Tesla. And again, I think FSD is going to be in that. It's going to be beneficial for Tesla customers dramatically, but financially, it's going to be beneficial for Tesla, the company.
Yep.
Yeah. And Ford.
I'm on board.
It's a win-win.
Yeah. Great. I think, again, it reinforces just how game-changing this announcement was and this decision. It's just really, really, really cool. Completely unexpected. And I remember when the space was first announced, the first 5 or 10 minutes was like, this is probably just going to be some chat. And the more we're thinking about it, like, wait, no, there's no way. There's got to be some sort of announcement. And then the predictions became, Tesla's going to buy Ford. It got like super crazy. And then
maybe
it came back down to earth. I don't know.
Maybe
that
down the road.
Be a smart idea. Nah,
Never.
That'd be crazy.
Never.
I would be very upset as an investor if they did decide to buy Ford. Okay. Let's go ahead and pull up our community questions. If you do want to ask a question, write question in the comment section below. And if it's an incredible question that producer wife deems as worthy, okay, which is all of them, will be on the screen. So go ahead and pull up the first question, producer wife, and we'll get started. Gino, big supporter of the channel. How you doing, my friend? Question: with Ford being able to use Tesla superchargers, how fast do you all anticipate this will accelerate the overall U.S. EV charging infrastructure with Tesla proposed NACS, which is the North American Charging Standard, the Tesla plug? How do you guys think about this question? It's a good question. Who wants to take this one first?
I have to think. How fast you want?
I think it's a great question.
Yes. Hard to answer.
I think it obviously will expedite. Again, I think for the reasons we spoke, it's going to expedite the process because Ford is a favored company in the United States, and the unions are favored by the current administration. And Tesla will be able to probably get additional financing from the government per the Irish Republican Army Act. And that will probably also increase the pace of infrastructure. And to the extent others join in, that'll also increase the pace of infrastructure. Tesla will generate more revenue. It'll let them build more also.
Yeah, and I think that now we have Ford, and then we have the next company, and then the speed will increase. I mean, the more that join, the faster it's going to get.
Yeah. And the company that's been building out this NACS charging infrastructure is Tesla, which is by far the fastest. So I would expect the already quick pace to accelerate. And maybe, there might be a deal that gets maybe Ford and Tesla start partnering on rolling out the superchargers as well. Maybe they're like, hey, here's how we do it. We'll fund half of your build out of superchargers, and then maybe they'll put a nice little Ford on there, but it's the NACS, and then Teslas can use it.
And who's to say that the federal government's not a quiet partner in this deal also?
Exactly.
Because I can't imagine that they would not have been informed of this before it was done.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. Good question. I think it's an absolute accelerant, and it's just amazing for EV adoption in the US. I think the beautiful thing about this is that we will have chargers everywhere for sure in the future, and having an EV will never be an inconvenience, even in the least travel areas. That's the beauty behind this partnership. So, great question, Gino. Let's pull up the next one. And Drew, another community member. Thank you so much for your question. What are your thoughts on Neuralink FDA approval? What will be the first benefits? Looking forward to the positive results for those who can't use limbs to easing mental conditions. Yeah, we briefly spoke about this already on the live stream. A lot of implications. Did you guys want to add anything else to what we already discussed?
I just think for the treatment of especially neurological issues, it seems like that would be specifically designed for that. And probably what it's ultimately going to be used for is probably not within our current comprehension.
Maybe?
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
No, I just hope and pray that the tests go well. So
yeah, who's not in favor of this? Who's not in favor of helping people that have disabilities?
Right. Yeah. I don't know if anyone. I've actually had multiple folks email me about, they were asking me if I had any connections to try and get them into a trial with Neuralink, because they're like they're paraplegic, or they have a lot of disabilities. They're like, dude, if you know anybody that can hook me up, I'm like, I don't know, I'll try to connect you the best way I can. But boy, is this a direct sort of. It's just so amazing. It's so amazing. And it's, think about like the time that we live in now. We have AI taking off like crazy. We have self-driving cars, and now we have freaking chips in our brain that are going to solve the worst human conditions out there. Some of the worst human conditions out there and diseases. So it's fantastic. Yeah. It's such a good time to be alive, man. It's really, as dark and weird the world can be sometimes, it's news like this that really make you hopeful about the future.
If the sunshine was out, when I see the movie Blade Runner, it makes me think of this stuff. If you've ever seen the movie, then do so. It'll give you an yeah.
Maybe I did, but I'm young. Yeah.
You forgot. Well, I don't think that everything about AI is positive, but
oh, of course.
Let's not go into that discussion now.
Yeah. We that would be another 3 hours additional.
Yep.
Thank you, Drew, for your question. Let's do the next one. Bow and Roger Starkey question: Ford to build superchargers on their license? Yeah, yes. I mean,
why not?
Probably, right? Why not? Yeah. They have an incentive to do so.
Yep.
It helps. The NACS plug is going to be amazing, and I'm sure they'll get the help of Tesla, because I'm sure Tesla will benefit from that too. If for every Ford supercharger they build, Tesla's going to be able to use it. So why wouldn't they do that? Yeah, good question, Roger. So the next one. Shane, $2 super chat. Thank you so much, brother. Think Ford has already secured charging ports. Well, they'll use. I'm trying to remember if Tesla builds the charging port in house or if it's a supplier. I mean, the supply chain is going to catch up to it. So if they're going to start manufacturing cars in 24 for 25, I'm sure they've already sourced the necessary ports put in their cars. It's going to be Does
Shane know who's manufacturing those charging ports?
Maybe he does. Maybe he's placing a bet.
Maybe.
Yeah, but yeah, I'm sure all of that's already in play. Let's do the next one. And Matt, did the three of you notice Ford's part in this partnership appears to be to watch Tesla do all the work? What work and expenses does Ford even have in fulfilling the goals of this announcement? This is an interesting question, but I think, Richard, you alluded to this, that, there's going to be something in the back end that we don't know about that's giving Tesla an incentive to do this, right?
Yeah, we always receive just kind of like the bare bone, don't know what the full deal is. And again, I don't think it's not Tesla's MO to not get some consideration for that, to the extent they're offering what they're offering, and they're going to benefit financially, and to the extent that the costs to everything that's been built to this point in time, there's no cost to whatever they're going to generate in income as to that.
Yeah.
And Ford will put the plugs in their cars.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, again, with Ford just pulling up to a Tesla station, Tesla will get money from every Ford customer. And the other side of it that we didn't really touch on, but it's giant, it's Tesla advertising. You show up to a Tesla supercharger with a bunch of Teslas next door, and there's a bunch of Tesla customers that are more than willing to show you, oh, cool, your F-150 Lightning is sick. Right. That's a giant frunk. Can I show you my Cybertruck, please? You can shoot it and nothing happens. It's like, right. And then you start hearing gunshots in supercharger lots and people will freak out. It's like, it gets weird. It gets weird at that point. So, yeah, but Tesla will definitely win. I mean, Tesla, if there's one thing they do really well is they know how to partner. They know, they're very altruistic in their missions, but I think their financials prove that they know how to make a good deal when it's needed. So, great question, Absolutely. Matt. Let's do the next one. And Drew, another question. Thank you, brother. Does Tesla buy Ford to get the naming rights for Model E? I mean, depends. No. I mean, if they can get a pennies on the dollar, who knows? No, I don't think
maybe that is what Tesla gets out of this. We don't know that. Maybe it's the Model E.
I don't think that would be possible until there's no other people on this planet named Ford.
Yeah, I agree. No, that would be quite a. I mean, it's not outside of Elon. He has a good troll, so.
But that's kind of the heart and soul of Ford, really, at this point in time.
Yeah.
And they had an entire division named after it, right? So. Yeah. Go ahead,
and now we have the 3, so we don't need E.
Right. Next question. And Tommy. Oh, it became a YouTube member. Nice. Thank you so much, Tommy. Appreciate your support. Nice. Welcome in. We'll do our member-only stream in about 8 minutes here. So make sure there'll be a link that will go live in your YouTube homepage. So make sure you follow us there. Thank you so much for your joining the community. Question. Okay, so Ford and Tesla are up, but it's like EV in general got a bit of a boost today. Even Geo EV, FUV, and Lucid, and GM, although traded in very small volumes. WTF is up with that. I mean,
that happens. Really, yeah. Every time there's an industry leader that does well, it takes everybody in that industry up, whether they did anything to deserve it or not. And today, all the EVs are riding Tesla and Ford. And
today up.
Yeah, everything I think other than Fisker, everything other than Fisker is up. And it's the same as NVIDIA. NVIDIA did the same thing with every computer chip company. NVIDIA went nuts. So that, by the way, that's the only thing I wish Tesla, the one thing change. I wish for today's purposes, that Tesla's name was NVIDIA. That's but all the chip companies, AMD and Micron, all those companies, they didn't do necessarily anything, but they follow the tide. So that's kind of what carries the everybody following along.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Mimi.
No, it's just a mass hypnosis of the market. We follow. Yeah.
And I think there's also some positive sort of news that the stock market is absorbing around. I think they revised GDP up for Q1 in the States, I believe. Then there's we know that the Fed is really done raising rates. And so a pause in rates means that at some point there could be a lowering of rates, which helps the stock market. You've had really good earnings being posted by a lot of companies lately. So I think there's just a lot of momentum for stocks to go up. It's just now we have to see if this recession that Elon is signaling towards will actually happen or not. And that
and
could,
the debt,
and
the debt
ceiling.
Yeah.
Debt ceiling. Yeah. They've apparently have advanced. And I think most people think they'll work out some kind of deal.
Yeah. It seems like they're going to delay it by 2 years, right? I think they're pushing it, kicking it down the road for 2 years.
Yeah.
That would be good.
Par for the
Terrific.
course. Not my problem,
Terrific.
someone else's problem.
Terrific. Problem solved.
Literally, just put it under the rug. Don't worry about
Right.
this now.
Wonderful.
Let the next person deal with it.
Yeah.
Nothing
borrow.
could go wrong. Yeah.
What could
just
go
borrow,
wrong?
print money. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Fantastic. All right. Next question. Our dear trusted leaders. And be kind but shrewd. Whoa, what a statement. Question. Why do this? What? Be kind and but shrewd? Why do this? It slows down Tesla owners waiting behind Ford owners for open chargers. Wall Street will love it. Tesla should not allow anyone else. Only Ford for being first to humble itself. I don't entirely agree with this statement, but do you guys have any takes on this?
Yeah, I think the quantity of chargers will increase to survive the demand. I think that's otherwise it's not going to work.
I haven't heard any complaints in Europe since Tesla opened their superchargers.
Yeah.
And so I think that, and they're expanding all the time. And no, I don't think it will be a problem.
Yeah, I think this is a forcing function for the supercharger team to make sure that there's enough superchargers for everybody. So again, it goes behind how, if there's one thing Elon Musk is really good at, is creating incentives to create the right motion.
Yeah.
And so Tesla's incentivized to have as many superchargers available for other EV makers to use it, so they can make money off of every single EV owner out there. And then if there's a complaint about waiting times, then it's a very clear data point for Elon that as an executive to say, okay, well, so then why don't we have more chargers? What the hell? Let's make more chargers.
And again, I think, I'm just kind of speculating like I speculate about a lot of stuff, but I wouldn't be surprised if large commercial real estate owners become partners in developing the stations also, and again, repurposing their commercial space. And part of the deal is they're going to come and put the superchargers in, and they'll get people coming to their space and make money.
I agree more.
Not legal advice.
Thank God you said that last bit. All right, let's do a couple more. Next question. Akibo, do you guys have a price target for 2025 for the stock? Include the Cybertruck, robots, robotaxi, and the rest. All right, everybody, get your Excel sheets out. Financial advice. Who wants to go first?
Well, I don't have the robotaxi and robots for 2025.
Yeah.
Neither do I. So they're not included.
Richard, do you have a number?
Yeah, $523.
Okay. There it is. There's the pattern. Maybe what's her number?
400.
Okay.
In the beginning of 2025.
Okay, beginning of 2025. Okay.
Yeah.
So this is not financial advice. This is all of us just pulling stuff out of our butts.
That's
right?
a lot of speculating here.
Yes. Yeah. So I'm becoming very I'm not going to lie. I'm becoming very optimistic about the trajectory for Tesla stock in the next 2 to 3 years. I think there's a lot of momentum building. I think full self-driving. Yeah. I think full self-driving is farther along than a lot of people think. I really think it's imminent. You have partnerships starting to open up. You have clear domination from an auto perspective. If a recession comes, thank you. If a recession comes, you have you're going to have a Fed that's going to be very open to opening up the floodgates around for cash, which is great for stocks. Tesla's still going to be, in a position where they're going to generate a ton of profit. They've gotten a sign of sort of a stamp of approval from one of their biggest competitors that they're a legitimate company. And as they keep growing, they become less and less risky for people like Warren Buffett to jump in and other funds to jump in as well. And now that Elon's no longer now has a CEO for Twitter, then I think a lot of that pressure's off. So my very inaccurate, stupid crystal ball prediction, without actually sitting down and doing the math, but my gut tells me that I think somewhere around $1,000 in 2025.
Yeah, I have 400 in the beginning because I think that 2025 we will see FSD and we will maybe see some AI stuff coming from Tesla.
Compact.
So I think that, yes. And I think, so that's why in the end, I think it's really hard, but I wouldn't be surprised. I was kind of have an 850 or something, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, I've kind of, this is my personal view. I've come to understand that I have no clue what the stock price will be.
No.
And the business could be, you know, in a different location than the stock, and the stock can run way ahead of the business, like Nvidia, for example. So in my opinion, it's run ahead. It's a great company. It's got great future, but it's kind of probably a little ahead, and it'll probably adjust over time. It'll still a great company. So like for Tesla, I don't know in 2025 if there's something that's going to suppress the stock price, whereas the business is flying.
Yeah.
I didn't think we would be under 200 now. So.
Right. Yeah, it's a guessing game. It really is a guessing game, but it's sometimes fun to guess.
It is.
Yeah.
It is fun.
Yeah,
it is
fun. All right, let's do the last one. Okay, Rory, I had chili for dinner.
Rory! Oh, I missed
I
you.
cancel my date tonight. Rory is a
Yes,
goat
absolutely. You should cancel all your dates
No.
or change the menu.
There is a key fact that's omitted. Were there beans or no beans?
Yes.
Oh,
But-
yes. Right? No beans.
If
you
there
go
is
for
a
it.
lot of
Go
chili,
for it.
that's enough.
I love Rory because I think he's been on every stream asking the same exact question.
Yes.
And
I think Rory should ask someone outside the Tesla community.
I think we give the best advice. Producer wife in the private chat thinks that this is Elon's burner account. That would be amazing.
Thank you, Elon. Thank you, Mr. Musk.
Thank you. Yeah, he definitely doesn't have a trouble with dates because he's got as many kids as I have freaking staples on my desk. All right, everybody.
He's certainly persistent.
Very persistent. He's just started following Taylor Swift on Twitter, by the way. I don't know.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's the future bride, future Ms. Musk.
A lot of speculation about that.
Yeah,
we were.
Really? Okay, interesting.
Yeah.
I told
producer
wife on the flight back, and she's like, "Oh my God, is Elon going to be on Taylor Swift's next breakup song?" Because she always makes a song about her old boyfriends and stuff. So I don't know, man. Just be careful. All right, let's go to the next one. We're going to our member-only stream. If you're a subscriber, by clicking join right below this video, you see it come up right away. If not, do support the channel. Every Friday, half of the funds that we generate from the stream go into our community forum, where our community decides what to do with those funds. And we're getting to a pretty nice chunk of change now. So it's super exciting stuff.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to talk about ice cream. So we're just going to go to our next community member forum. All right, everybody. We'll see you on the private one, on the member only chat, and we'll see you next week. Take it easy, everybody. Bye. Oh,
bye.
Bring it back. Hold on. Thank you, mods. Thank you, Richard. Thank you, Mimi. And thank you, producer wife.
Yes, thank you.
For an excellent job. Okay, now we're leaving. Bye, everybody.